Hello people, Excellent Carter here, and I'm going to do a tutorial now on teamwork and communications, basically coordination of activity. I'm just going to cover the basics here, and then later on I'll do a backgrounder, an in-depth. So the enemy of teamwork is confusion, what Clausewitz called the fog of war. Basically, in any kind of a military situation, by default things will be confusing and you won't know what the hell's going on. So you want to combat that. Now the basic tool in a game is communications. It basically, you want to increase situational awareness. Now in a military situation, there are a lot of things you can do which you can't do in a game. So I'm just going to focus on, what teamwork is in a game. And that relates to the military somewhat. The basic tool that you use to create your situational awareness amongst your team is what I call the call-out. Now there are two kinds of call-outs. There's the friendly call-out and the enemy call-out. Enemy call-out is simple. You see enemy mines, or you see a Jaeger coming in, or a drone, or a beam, or whatever, and you call that out. And a friendly call-out is a statement of what you are going to do. It's an I statement. I'm going to move north, or I'm going to attack, or I'm going to set up mines, something like that. A call-out consists of two things: a subject and a location. If you don't give both of those things, your call-out is pretty much useless. The subject part is simple. Drone, Jaeger, if it's an enemy call-out, or mines, if it's an enemy call-out. If it's friendly call-out, radar, setting up radar, that kind of thing. Now everybody, we're all guilty of doing what I would say a subject-only call-out. It happens all the time. You're playing a game and you see an enemy scout lay a mine, or you see a Jaeger unit coming in, or something like that. So you say, mines, or Jaeger, or drone, or something like that, right? It's almost pointless, It might wake up the player. A friendly player may look around, but unless you give some kind of reference on the map, your communications just aren't going to do anything, In fact, the location part is so important. I mean, that's the entire point of this game. This game is about positional warfare. It's called ground control for a reason. So this is where we get to the element of location. To give a location is where it gets tricky, because in typical ground control map, you've got this great big vast open space of just raw wilderness, and there are, how do you locate something? If you see an enemy scout drop mines, how do you locate that verbally? I'm going to give you a few techniques. Basically, we're talking about map position. First thing I want to say is locations should be in absolute terms. Statements like left and right, top and bottom, we shouldn't use that when we're talking about the map here. And I'll get back to that a little bit later. More effective terms to use are absolute terms. One of the more basic ones is a compass bearing. The first technique is using a compass bearing. Straightforward. North, south, east, west. Northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. And middle. So that's straightforward. That's, by the way, a better thing to do than to say left or right, and I'll get into that in a second. So with those are 9 points. You can basically give a rough location, 9-point location. Second thing is to use one of your units as a reference. Your APC is a good reference because the APC is a little bit brighter than your other units. Or scouts or whatever, or using your friendlies unit as a reference. For example, this scout here. Let's say I spotted, let's say this mine, there's a mine here, you can see. Let's say this is an enemy mine and I spot it. Now I could say to friendly players, enemy mines near my scout. If my scout is far away from if my scout is in the midst of my formation, that's going to be a little difficult to pinpoint. But if my scout is way out in the nowhere, it's going to be easier. I can force fire. That's a way of indicating a location as well. The only disadvantage, though, is that the enemy will see me. Like this dot, this blue dot won't be visible to the enemy, but they will see the white dots, which indicate the fire. So that's one thing. You know, you could say, like, I could also say north of my scouts, that sort of thing. You know, that's one way of indicating a location. There's something else I want to give, and this is based on military terminology. It's what I call a grid reference. When you're locating things on a map in a military operation, you'll use grid references. Today they'll probably use GPS, and they'll probably have sophisticated electronics which just pinpoint things, but even if they do, they need to know the backups of how to read a paper map in case their GPS goes down. A grid reference essentially is dividing the map up into grid lines. And in a military situation, you'd have a map which would have actual grid lines on the map. But what you can do in ground control is simply divide the map up into 10 lines across the east and west spectrum, and 10 lines across the north and south spectrum. So this scout here, which is flashing, if I wanted to, let's say I didn't have that scout there, let's say that I knew that there were mines there and that scout wasn't there, I could say that there are mines at grid, I would say that grid is about 7-3. 7 spaces or 7 increments across the bottom and about 3 across the top. So a grid reference is a good fast way of pinpointing a place with on the map. It's also a really good way to call in artillery, by the way. A grid reference consists of 2 numbers. There's a chance you might confuse the first and the second. In the military, they taught us a simple rhyme, and that is in the house and up the stairs. So the first number is always this east-west, and the second number is always this north-south. So if I go grid 2-8, that's 2 here and about 8 there. That would put my reference point here. If I counted grid 7-9, that would be about here, I'd say. And if it was 0 is along here, 0-0 would be here, 10-10 would be here. Nothing. You always would say the grid, the term grid. You say grid 7-5, grid 7-5 would be about there. Anyway, it's a fast way of locating something on the map. It's what has been done in the military for years, and it's a tool that we can use. Another way of locating something is by using a name. Now, I use brazen this map specifically to illustrate locations because it's so open and featureless. This hill, you could think that people would give a nickname, the big bumpy hill, that sort of thing, right? Not too many maps. We can't really use names very much unless people took the trouble of actually trying to give nicknames to all the various features. If you're playing on the map Fear, you can give a name, a physical name of a drop zone. Alright, here I am on the map Fear. This is drop zone 1. There are 6 drop zones. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the opposite, the enemy drop zone. 5 and 6. There's an infantry only canyon leading between drop zones 1 and 6. My Marines are moving through it now. My Jaegers are coming through an infantry, or a canyon between drop zones 3 and 4. I got my APC overlooking the no man's land, which is between. And so it's easy to locate things roughly in the map Fear. Anyway, the term I want to talk also about the terms left and right and top and bottom. Let me set something up first. Top and bottom, we're all guilty of a sort of a sloppy language when we refer to locations on the map. We use top left as being over here, bottom right here, that kind of thing, right? We shouldn't use that. And the reason why we shouldn't do that is because we can't use those terms in the way they're truly intended or they should be used. Ground control, again, being a game about ground control, positional warfare, and three-dimensional terrain, we need, for good situational awareness, we really need to have accurate spatial terms. The terms top and bottom, above and below, really should belong to the third dimension. In other words, this infantry unit is on the top of this hill, and this scout unit is at the bottom of this hill. On the southeast side of the bottom of this hill, the big bumpy hill, or whatever. And really, it gives us a better set of tools to develop situational awareness. Now, left and right is another one. Left and right are relative terms. You know, if I'm facing north, left is over towards the west, right is towards the east. But if my force is up here, and I'm facing to the southeast, and the enemy is down here, the left is totally different. You know, left is to the east, and right is to the west. That's backwards. In military terminology, there's a concept known as the axis of advance. You know, or if I was advancing in this direction, and I decided I was going to flank to the left, I would send these units around here like that. But you know, if I'm sloppy about using that term left and right, I can't. I'll generate confusion if I say I'm flanking left in that respect, or if I say the enemy is coming from our left. Actually, that's one way that you can clear up confusion. If you say our left or my left, that works a little bit better. Another way, actually, of identifying flanking maneuvers, that sort of thing, is to use the terms clockwise and counterclockwise. I prefer those. That's absolutely clear. If somebody's flanking clockwise, they're going like that. If they're flanking counterclockwise, they're going like that. And generally people flank that way, you know, on these big square maps. So those are some communication tools to develop situational awareness. I don't know if players in our community will pick up the habit of using left and right and top and bottom in their more accurate sense, but I'm just throwing it out there.